So Dark Knight Returns was invited to screen at this event, and I needed to submit the film for all of the, the board members involved in the event, so that all of the board members could see the movie in advance. I mean, the people who invited me had already seen the movie, and they knew they liked it, and they knew they wanted it to screen, but everybody needed to sign off on it. So they all sat around one evening and they watched the movie, and everybody really liked the movie and they wanted it to screen. But there was one sequence that caught several of them off guard, and that was the scene where Bruce Wayne is sitting in front of the television and he's watching all the horrible things going on in Gotham City. So I get a phone call from the event and they say, hey, that footage on the television, is that footage from the Ferguson riots? And for those of you who are unfamiliar, in 2015, we had the shooting incident with Mike Brown, where he was killed by the police officer, and then we had several riot events occur later on. I honestly thought that I had used a couple of shots from the Ferguson riots in the footage, but I thought that, the majority of the footage was from someplace else. I was pulling, sort of public news footage and putting it into a montage. So the people at the event said, can you check into that and see what's Ferguson footage and what's not? Because, to be blunt, this is going to be a public event and it's here in St. Louis. We don't want to upset anybody. This is a Batman film. We just want people to have fun and watch a Batman film. And here in St. Louis, it might be a little close to home, seeing the Ferguson riot footage. So can you check and see, and would it be possible to alter that footage? So, I had some misgivings about it, but I went back and I researched the footage, and I did not realize this. I had used all Ferguson footage for that TV sequence. Every piece of footage in that sequence was pulled from news broadcasts featuring Ferguson. Even the shots of the Humvees and the soldiers and the helicopters and buildings burning, I thought that was like war footage or stuff from other cities. No, it all was Ferguson footage. I didn't even realize that that's what I had used. So I thought, am I gonna bow to censorship? Am I gonna change this footage, or am I just gonna cut the scene, or am I just gonna say, no, I'm sorry, I don't want to screen the movie? So first of all, I had a conversation with the organization, and I'm gonna be blunt. Conversation I had basically went like this. I said, you know what? It is all Ferguson footage. I didn't realize it was Ferguson footage. I'm surprised myself. I really didn't think I used that much Ferguson footage. Let me ask you a question. Is it a matter of you don't want to see riots? You don't want to see Ferguson riots? You don't want to see black people rioting? What do you not want to see? And they very specifically said, well, we don't want to see Ferguson footage, and we don't want to see black people rioting. And I said, are you saying it would be okay if I showed white people rioting? And they said, sure, if you want to show white people rioting, that's fine. So, believe it or not, I went to YouTube and I started searching white people rioting. And I got footage from the tax riots in the UK. And I got footage from sporting event riots in Canada. And it was all almost exclusively middle-class white people going crazy. And I recut the sequence, and I used all the new footage. I got rid of the Ferguson footage. And frankly, I like the sequence better. I think it tells the story better. I found an incorporated footage that fit what the news broadcasters were talking about better. Shockingly, I think it's a more violent sequence. I think it's more hard-hitting now. I've had mixed feelings about this ever since it happened, and I wasn't really sure if I did the right thing or not. But here's an interesting outcome. I spoke with a black filmmaker friend of mine. I told him the concerns that the organization had, and I told him eventually what happened. And he was upset for this reason. He said he felt like he could understand that the organizers, the event planners, didn't want to cause unrest at a public event. He understood that. But he said the idea that it was okay to show anybody else rioting or white people rioting, but not specifically Ferguson riots in the St. Louis area at a St. Louis event, he said it was as if they were turning their back on the reality of the situation. that because of PR and because of, not wanting to scare people, not wanting to alienate people, they were trying to, just sort of gloss over the whole Ferguson situation and pretend like it didn't happen. And I very much understood his point, which is, part of the reason why I'm talking about the situation now. It's ironic that I like the sequence better as it is, and I never set out to say something about Ferguson to begin with. I was never stating anything about Ferguson. I was never stating anything about, the relationships and the tension between the police and black people here in St. Louis. That was never my point. And right there, maybe I should have stayed away from it to begin with, because if I wasn't out to make a point about Ferguson, I probably shouldn't have used the Ferguson footage, without thinking about it, without taking responsibility for it. So I think ultimately the sequence's success or failure rested on my shoulders. I'm the one who put it together, and I think in the future it will cause me to think about the stock footage I'm using a little more carefully and think about it in both a worldwide context and in a regional context. So we're going to present the two scenes here. We're going to present the Riot scene as it was originally in the version that's on YouTube, and then we're going to present the recut scene as it was for this specific event. And probably when we do a director's commentary, we'll put it in the director's commentary version, and if I should do any foreign language versions, like a Spanish language version for YouTube, we'll probably put it in that version too, and move forward from here with the new Riot footage as opposed to the old Riot footage.
This is Hotline. And now here's Dave.
Can't stop the revolution!
4 people killed here in downtown in a senseless attack.
But the police chief decided not to, citing death threats.
Reports show that subway deaths reached an all-time high this past summer.
Police once again had to put down and head off violence in the streets following the shooting using the same tactical get-up and the same weaponry we've come to expect in urban warfare in Iraq and Afghanistan.
A 62-year-old woman was reportedly raped and then mutilated.
This is Hotline. And now here's Dave.
Can't stop the revolution!
4 people killed here in downtown in a senseless attack.
But the police chief decided not to, citing death threats.
Reports show that subway deaths reached an all-time high this past summer.
Police once again had to put down and head off violence in the streets following the shooting using the same tactical get-up and the same weaponry we've come to expect in urban warfare in Iraq and Afghanistan.
A 62-year-old woman was reportedly raped and then mutilated.